What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Healer's House podcast. I'm your host, Wesley, a certified professional psychic medium, full-time healer, and RTT therapist. We have a really special guest today. So, as you guys know, on the Healer's House podcast, we like to talk about healing work, be it magic, healing, mediumship, energy work, light work, philosophy, therapy, whatever it is. We are discussing stories, we're discussing techniques, modalities, and how to step into our power and our authority in our own lives to heal ourselves and become of healing service to others, even. And one of my favorite people happened to be on live recently, and I just took a chance and made a comment, was like, please come on the Healer Self podcast and talk about this kind of stuff with me. Um, and that is the Seeing Healer over on TikTok, aka Terry, but you may know her more by the Seeing Healer. Phenomenal, just spiritual. Like, the way I would describe it is it feels like that person, like you feel like immediate, like a warm hug with that's going to have correction, guidance, clarity. Anytime you watch her videos, it's like you can just sense the truth in it. There's just so much goodness over there. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So Terry, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what it is you're doing over there on TikTok.
Hey, so thank you so much for having me. I was super excited to join. I love being able to share with other healers and, get these messages and these gems out there to help people. So, I have my job title as a professional practitioner and teacher of the occult arts and sciences. So, and I do that through a multitude of different modalities. I am a Reiki master. I'm an intuitive reader. I'm psychic. I've these psychic powers, been psychic powering for as long as I can remember. So I do intuitive readings and coaching sessions to help people. I do classes and all of these things to give people the tools to help themselves. I'm a heat seeking missile for identifying people's problems, and then I make them better. It just so happens that my zone of genius is as a growth architect. So I can take a person or a system and bring out the best in it.
Oh, I love it. And that is exactly like, if you didn't have all those words, you guys, if you were to come across our content for the first time, you would feel all of those things without knowing the vocabulary. So, okay, well, let's dive right in. I love that you said that you have a variety of modalities as well, and that you identify as a practitioner and a heat seeking missile for finding the problem and then fixing it using whatever tool in your toolbox that you need to use. So same here, like all about the root cause. Like, even when I'm doing mediumship, like spirits aren't coming through for giggles half the time. They're coming through because there's something healing that you need to hear. And
Mhm.
so I love that. I love that I'm all about treating the root. So that's awesome. So let's talk about this. Um, I would like to I guess what I would like to ask is kind of, how did you get into this? I know you said the psychic powers have been psychic powering forever, but like, how did you get into this? Like, how'd you find yourself here? Oftentimes when people ask me, I'm just like, I feel like I had no choice but to end up here. But like, obviously, I know there was free will involved. But so yeah, tell us a little bit about your story. Like, how did you end up here? Did something happen that made you go into this? Like, floor is yours.
So it was really something that never happened to me. It was kind of something that was just always was. So my memory
Mhm.
goes back to when I was 18 months old.
Mm.
I was, and I'm not sure if it's because of the psychic abilities, but it was something that always just was like, I would always see things, specifically angels. That's why my mode of practicing magic and alchemy heavily involves angels, and I grew up in a haunted house. So paranormal things were just my norm, and it wasn't until I got older that I
Oh my
realized
God.
that it was something different. And so, and I grew up in a household where my grandfather fueled my nerdiness, and he didn't believe in children's books, right? The only um children's book that I had was an illustrated children's Bible. But when I got older and I was growing up in church, and I couldn't really figure out why it just wasn't sinking. So I would go and read different books,
Hmm.
different spiritual books. I was that kid that spent a lot of time in the library with my pocket full of nickels, to
Mm.
make copies and take notes,
Oh.
and just learning all of the things, and just kind of really, I think for me, it was that I never had the option to not trust myself and not flow with it, but just learn it and foster it. Because to be honest, my first teachers were spirit guides or the angels themselves.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Wow, that is such an interesting story, and I bet you there's so many like tales along the way. Okay, so what I want to focus, I love that one of the things you said is like there's some that was just like not sinking in. Like I knew there was more was kind of what you were saying. And like like I really truly identify with that because I come from a Christian background myself. The listeners know that. But I I also like how was very spiritually gifted and like in tune. And I often tell people I'm like the gift is not the ability, it's like being in touch with it. Like everybody has it.
mhm.
And so like I was one of those people that I had an authentic relationship with Holy Spirit. And it was kind of what led me to like be like, okay, wait a minute, like that's not right. Like there's more to this. And so it's so interesting. You're like your spirit was also leading you to like seek out more information because that's what happened to me. I was like, I want to read other things. Like let's take in all this, all the good. We can leave the whatever's not working. But I love that because I can identify with that story. So here's what I want to know. We talked about before we hopped on, we were talking about one of the things that made me really want to ask you to be on the podcast is you were like, I'm not a Christian woman, but I use my Bible in the practice all the time. And then
Mhm.
I recognize the Judaic themes and the things that you talk about, but like not everyone is sitting around learning about cosmology in ceremonial practices.
Mhm.
So like I love that. For some of our listeners, a lot of the listeners, they're coming from, they're deconstructing. Sometimes some of them are reconstructing and reconciling. Some of them are just curious and whatnot. So tell me how you blend that wisdom, like how you use those things in your practices of healing work, regardless of what it is that you're healing yourself, others, Tell us more about that. And also, you wrote how many books now? Is it one, two?
I wrote two. So the Tree of Life and the Tree of Death is an ebook on my site. And then I just released Divine Femme Noir, working with the goddesses for the reclamation of your divinity. And I am currently actively working on book three.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're on book three now. Okay, cool. Well,
Mhm.
so tell us how like tell us all about that stuff, and then you can obviously like, you know, talking about like the Kabbalah and whatnot. I'm sure that that corresponds to one book versus the other, but feel free to just whatever's on your heart. Tell us a bit about that. Like we're not a Christian, but we use this kind of stuff. How do you use those things in your practice? Because it's very respectful. Like I know people who I don't know how to put they're actively trying to shut down anything that looks like it could be Christian because of all like the political weaponization of Christianity. Like they just want nothing to do with it, and I just find it so interesting because it's all in context and it all makes sense when I see your video. So, anyways, just share.
So honestly, that children's Bible started it all.
Mm,
It's the way that it was written, it wasn't in like the verses and chapters the way we see it in,
mhm,
when we go to church. It was actually written in stories, and I would just really sit with it and sit with the stories and learn the lessons. And so when I was sitting in church, I'm like, this is being taught wrong. And then I
mm,
went and grabbed the grown-up Bible, and I would just rest with it in my hands and be like, Mama, show me what I need to see. Because again, lifelong, the Most High has always presented itself to me as a
mhm,
feminine energy. So I would
mhm,
say, Mama, what do I need to see? And then that led me to different books. And when I was 15, I was introduced to Kabbalistic wisdom by a classmate of mine because he used to stare at me all the time. Um, and I couldn't realize why. It wasn't that he had a crush on me. Crazy thing is, as psychic as I am, I can't read flirting, so I didn't know if that was happening or not.
Same.
But the thing that got his attention was they were asking us about what we did over spring break, and I said my Tanti Lodi. I was referring to my great aunt because in our family we would
Mhm.
call our immediate aunts aunt, but like our second and third aunts we would call them Tanti. And when I said, because in Hebrew it means auntie, and so when I
Mm.
said my Tanti Lodi and my Tanti Ring, he turned around, and after class we had a conversation, and he began to teach me Kabbalistic wisdom. He was like, "It's in you." He was like, "I couldn't really pinpoint what that energy was about yourself and why you would just the force when you would enter the classroom." And so him and his father taught me these things, but my thirst for knowledge has always been insatiable. And so I think what the journey really entails is, first of all, meditating and asking for discernment, and then exploring, right? Am I a Christian woman? No. Is wisdom in that Bible? Am I Jewish? No. Is wisdom in that Torah? Am I Muslim? No. It's wisdom in that Quran, and I have all of these things, even the text from the East. So it's a lot of learning new things, and let that inner bookworm just go crazy, right?
Mhm.
And you will find the truth in all of them. And again, when you trust your own inner guidance, you can begin to connect these dots and see how there is truth in the things, and approach them, like I said, with respect. And so learning the magical herbs, learning astrology, it's just one thing leads to another. So the student
Mhm.
phase is actually really the most fun part.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. Like sometimes, actually, I agree so hard. Somebody recently, they asked me a question, and they were like, "If you could just pause everything for 6 months and come back, and nothing would be different." I thought they were gonna say, "Would you do it?" And I was just like, "No. Like, obviously, I want to experience what's happening now." But they said, "What would you do in that time?" Instead of would you do it? Like as if it was already going to happen. What would you do in that time? The first thing I thought was, I want to dive into books and revisit all my notes and stuff. Like there's something so fun about learning and expanding and like putting things together, like building your cosmology map and like the way you view the universe and organizing all that information. Like I relate as well. Like Holy Spirit is who I relate to the most, and Holy Spirit has always been feminine. In Hebrew, it's the word is a feminine word, the Ruach HaKodesh. And so that is who I feel closest to as well. And I've always had that sense of, even in ministry trainings, like we would learn, like you relate to Holy Spirit the way you relate to your mother. I'm like, really? Like looking back, I'm like, really? Y'all couldn't just call it what it was? But
Mhm.
I love that you pull from all those different places and synthesize things. It's so it's so rare for someone to take in more than just like one or two things and to see like you know, again, like I said, to recognize the healing work that you're doing and seeing it on such a public platform and to know it's like, I don't know, it's just hearing the story. It's just, if someone were to come across you, they couldn't help but love you more. To hear your story, to know that you're not just somebody who's gifted, you're like somebody who like genuinely loves doing this stuff. You can tell because who's going to spend their time learning if like they don't actually have a hunger and desire to grow and to learn all of that stuff. So I want to get into, so tell us a little bit like, what is it that you actually, I know you said you're heat seeking missile for people, and that you get to the root cause of everything. By the way, I could talk your ear off all day. I'm trying to stay organized. So if there's something you think of that you want to say, please interrupt me. I'm like, do not ask all these 10 questions you have in your head right now.
Look, and I
Um,
will answer all 10
I
of them
know
too,
you
because I
will. I
could
can
talk
feel
all
it.
day.
I can feel it. Um, okay, okay, well then let's do it. So, what was this process of like learning Kabbalah in high school? Like that's intense. Like that's
Well,
really
I mean,
intense.
honestly, it wasn't any less intense than learning how to do shielding work and keeping my
Oh,
clairs
true.
under control when I first entered school. So it was just like, honestly, like that was the hardest part because I'm trying to learn how to control these gifts while also learning like basic arithmetic too. So and again, it's something that I love to do. Like I don't even watch TV. Like I'll have my TV on in the background, but it's
Hmm.
just that's my lo-fi. And
Yeah.
so it was just like in addition to, and then like mythology was my favorite subject in literature. So
Yes.
and at the time I was I was learning mythology in in English lit. And so this came
Hmm.
along and I was like, hey, it
Yeah.
nothing can stop this nerdiness. I always tell people like I'm a spiritualist, but I am a nerd first.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I need a shirt that says spiritualist, but also a nerd first. That would be
Mhm.
so cute. Okay, so I have a question. How long did it take? Well, I'm sure that's not the best way to ask that. What was it? Do you remember having that moment when you were like, oh wait, this is all just a way to like organize like the thoughts and like how to access parts of ourselves to get to those layers of existence? Like, do you remember? Because I remember when I had this I would read different systems and I would be like, oh, they're talking about the lower, middle, and upper world, or the higher, middle, and lower self, or they're talking about the different Sephiroth. And I'm like, I remember when I had the moment, I was like, oh my God, they're all talking about the same thing. They're organizing the layers of the universe, how we operate, the parts of ourself, like in the physical world that correspond to these things. Like, that's the kind of stuff like I get really into because I'm like, yes, 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 yes,
Mhm.
please. Like, like, I geek out on that stuff because I'm like, because then, like, you can build a system with anything. Like, for instance, like the Arthurian legends, like King Arthur and whatnot, that's all a way of organizing this as well. Um, and then, anyway, so do you ever remember having moments where you're just like, oh, wait a minute, I see what they're doing here. Like, I can synchronize it across the board now.
Yes, and it would really be as I would read things and I'd be like, "Oh, so yeah, this makes sense. So this makes what Thoth said in them emerald tablets make more sense. The
Hmm.
power of life and death in the tongue. I can't remember exactly which tablet it was, but oh,
Yeah.
this is so it's just like because then too we have to understand that the divine works with us individually and specifically. And
Yeah.
so each individual, right, that wrote these holy books, or all of these people that wrote any and all of these tomes, I have to appreciate the fact that these people allowed the divine to move through them in such a way to give them this information and inspiration to put it out there. And so,
Yeah.
even in Hermetic wisdom, there is nothing outside of the all. And so, there is nothing as there's no such thing as new thought, but there's all of these different ways to express it, just like I love you,
Yes.
right? There's as many ways to say I love you as there are languages. And so, or even how we express love non-verbally. So it's the same thing. And I think honestly, the thing that helped me be able to really integrate that was the fact that I grew up in Chicago. And
Hmm.
it was actually a really practical, mundane thing that I saw that wisdom in because Chicago is a melting pot, right? Chicago is
Hmm.
basically the entire world in one city. So,
Wow.
growing up in such a diverse city, it really just let me know that we're all doing the same thing, speaking a different language, moving a little bit differently. And so,
Hmm.
when you just enter that space of intention, right? Sit down and learn with it, set the intention first. It,
Hmm.
it might as well just be written on a billboard and it just jumps out.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I get into like I have these moments where like I think about everyone's journey and like I start listening to people's journey and they're like, "Oh, we had this practice growing up. We didn't call it nothing, and then when I grew up, I learned it was this, you know, mystical, magical energy work type thing over here." And I think about all of that and sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't have a ton of those experiences until I'm having conversations like this. And then I'm like, oh, wait, yes, you did. Like it's my whole life I've been doing this kind of stuff. Like, even in high school, like, so I've been very empathic and psychic in my whole life. and like looking back, hindsight's 2020, right? But I remember it became a running joke, like almost like a little bit of resentment to it. They're like, "Oh, you're always right. Like Wesley's always right," especially when it came to like the people that like my friends were interested in. I'd be like, "That's not the one." Like, and they would be like, it is like it's little things, and then it would be moments where I'm just um, like here's like a common thing people experience is like when people are like when you start really thinking about someone and they're going through something or like they really need help or like they're about to call you for help or something, all of a sudden you pick up the phone and it's ringing. Like those kinds of things would happen. But beyond the little psychic things, when I was in the church, I'm really grateful because I did come from a charismatic, non-denominational background that was light years ahead of most of the church, but also still had their own strongholds and BS. Um, and they operated in the signs and wonders. They taught us how to heal the sick. They taught us how to prophesy. They taught us how to travel in the spirit and all those things. And when I realized that the type of things we were doing in prayer, like manipulating energy and tapping into Holy Spirit and whatnot, like that, those are the things I was able to recognize in these other practices. That was like, okay, wait, we're doing the same thing. Like something's off here. We need to like we need to revisit this idea that it's us versus them. Um,
Mhm.
in my early adulthood, I was like, everything in the church that is outside of whatever Christianese they're talking under is roped under the category witchcraft or the occult, forgetting that Christianity is a Near Eastern religion and is occult in nature. Um, and so, anyways, my point in saying all that was it's the synthesizing things from like your own life into like these philosophies that we're learning. So whether it's the Emerald Tablets or Kabbalah or shamanistic beliefs, whatever it may be, like did you was there ever a moment that like you began to see beyond the mystical and be like, oh, this is actually healing me mentally and emotionally? Like, do you remember when it went from like supernatural, like little, like, oh, this is cool and interesting and like makes life exciting to, oh my God, like this is speaking to my soul and healing my heart? Like, do you remember when like that shift or like or just an example of like when something like that happened? And by all means, you can share as little or much as you like, but I think for our listeners, a lot of them, that's why they're seeking healing work. That's why they're seeking this stuff is so that they can heal that mental and emotional side of things. And while the fireworks are fun, like how do we apply it? And so, do you remember like a time when like it really became about like healing yourself, and then also are there any stories about how or ways that you like to incorporate certain techniques? Like, do you have any favorite healing techniques? Like, a lot of people talk about shadow work, but that can look different for people. Just the floor is yours. Like, relating this to the inner world and like healing our internal self. Like, what's like, go for it.
So it
I
was a
know that's a
very
lot, right?
mundane, no, it's a very mundane thing that happened, and I had to begin to apply this to my regular life because, and I've shared this on my TikTok before, that my mother was extraordinarily abusive to me growing up.
Mm,
She abused me every way but sexually, and it was so bad that, I made, by the time I was 17, I made 2 attempts on my own life,
mm,
unsuccessfully, fortunately. Um, but being on my own right before 18, right? I couldn't get the medicine that I needed from my mom in the form of her even acknowledging that what she did was wrong. Like she couldn't see that how she treated me, right, was absolutely terrible, like the verbal, the physical abuse and all of those things. And in her mind, she did nothing wrong because a roof stayed over our head, clothes stayed on our back, and poverty was never a part of our
mm,
story. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me go ahead and correlate this and synthesize this into, now I'm not broken in a way. And the crazy thing is that I always knew that that was what I had to go through in order to be what I am today. And the first time I made that attempt on my life was actually saved by mystical means, or paranormal
mm,
means, I will say. um but it didn't, although I always knew that that was my purpose, it didn't make it suck any less when it was happening. And then I
Oh.
had to actually go back into old notes because my grandmother passed away when I was 14 years old of brain
Mhm.
cancer. And I made a
Mm.
promise to myself that I'm not going to go through this again and try, like, I'm going to cure cancer, right? I made
Yeah.
that promise to myself. So at 14, again, in addition to esoterics, I was also trying to teach myself about the human body and learn
Mm.
herbalism so that, because growing up, we didn't go to the doctor unless you broke something or needed stitches. And so I had to rewind and go back to my medical learning and the things that I had taught myself. And I'm like, okay, I feel these things in my body, but then I actually had to turn to studying the brain
Mm.
and synthesizing and collating that um with all of these esoteric things. And I had to do a lot of things like the baths, the affirmations and all of those things, because
Mm.
I had to heal on my own and now manage adulting on my own at 18 years old. So
Yeah.
it was that. And I stroked out at 18. I had a stroke.
Oh my
That was
gosh.
really what triggered it, and it was solely due to stress. I had been
Mhm.
carrying that for so long. I'm like, okay, I'm in a state where literally I don't have anything but time to figure out how to apply this, because my body is broken
Yeah.
because of these things. Okay, you've learned all of the things, apply it. Apply it.
Wow.
I was in the hospital for about a week, and in that bed, at 18 years old, I couldn't even wash myself. It was crazy. But it broke
Oh.
my body. The energy broke my body down. And again,
Mm.
I had nothing but time to lay there and think about it and just kind of figure it out. So now I've put that into something that is way easier for people, that they don't have to
Yeah.
go through that extreme. Um, and so depending on what the person needs, right? It could be mirror work, it could be energy work, it could be working with the plants in nature for spiritual baths, and
Mhm.
also not necessarily fasting in the form of deprivation. Like, let's do these things with intention, right?
Mhm.
Teaching practical magic in a sense, where
Mhm.
in practical healing. And one of those ways that I'm actually currently doing it now, because I'm in the middle of a 21-day reset with a group, whereas I'm really, my strong suit is being a living mirror for a person.
Mm. Mhm.
Okay. And with my studies of, watching a bunch of documentaries and learning things in books, and also being an NLP practitioner myself,
Mhm.
and learning that, oh, the brain is programmable. I knew for a long
Yeah.
time we were always electrical beings, right?
Yeah.
Because I had to get acupuncture because I was having psychic overload, right? So I'm
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, I got to look at our electrical system and then look at the herbs that help our electrical system, right? And so what I find is, like, how people go and they prompt chat GPT, they prompt
Yeah.
AI. Being a living mirror for a person is I feel like when people are prompted correctly, my prompting skills may suck when it comes to technology, because you should see the way I cut up in Amazon's search bar. But but I can prompt I can prompt organic intelligence in a person
Yeah.
by making you look into something. So I help people identify what it is in them, and then from there we go with what's the best way to clean this mess. The same way you would look at a stain in your clothes. Dang, this pasta sauce, I got to put this on
Mm.
it first, or this is ink. So each person is different, and each person's needs of correcting that issue. Like, I've had people come to me with the exact same problem, right?
Mhm.
For instance, I had two clients come to me from extremely abusive relationships, right?
Yeah.
And it was literally copy and paste.
Yeah.
It, copy and paste problems, right? The solution for one young lady was really simply mirror work. 21 days of mirror work and reprogramming. Okay, I formulated specific affirmations for her, yada, yada, yada. And then the second client, same exact situation. The work that she needed was a little bit more intense because the wound that caused her to be in this relationship was so far festered that
Yeah.
I had to, it's like one girl got cut by a knife, right? She needed stitches. The other woman had been shot and the
Yeah.
bullet was still inside. So I had to do a little bit more work to help her dig
Yeah.
that bullet out first, because she had a bullet just sitting inside of herself for 20 years, and we had to
Hmm.
go and dig that bullet out. So I can't name or pinpoint a favorite modality, because is it better to just have one weapon or a whole armory?
Yeah, no, no, and I hear you though. And you know what's so funny? That's so weird that you said that, because I read something yesterday and it was like it's better to have like to dig one deep well and be able to have rich, good water versus like a bunch of shallow ones with muddy water. And I was like, yeah, but also what if you just dig a few deep ones and you have some good tools that you can get the rich water from multiple sources, you know? So, so I hear what you're saying. And I think you actually like you do have a favorite, and the favorite is healing the root cause, like we talked
Yeah.
about. Like that is it. Like because I'm the same way. It's like, for instance, like part of the reason I became an RTT therapist is that it allows me to take all these years of spiritual practice and help people in a clinical setting. Like it's combining all of like the journey work, the energy work, and it allows me to help people in that way where like we have physical healings occur from doing therapy. So when I was listening to your story, first of all, we're coming back to this mystical intervention saving you. Like I want to hear that. But secondly, I what I found really interesting was, and obviously like not celebrating the circumstances, but what I found very interesting is like we had the mystical experiences, we had the knowledge and whatnot, but then we started to realize, oh, we're a being that exists in the physical world, the mental world, the emotional world. And I love how you were like, I had to go learn to heal my body. I had to go learn to heal my soul and my mind. I love that because like people, they're like, I don't know where to start. And like, we can tell them, oh, everything matters. It's all important. And you're going to synthesize it all. But like, really, if you break it down into that, like you just did, like I had to learn the herbalism stuff to heal my body, to take care of myself, the medicine. Then it made me study the mind and how, because this is where we interface with the spirit world. Like our mind is
Mhm.
the translator. And so I think it's so beautiful and really cool that that story unfolded kind of naturally for you. I also really like that spirit has always been a mother form for you, and that was who was failing you the most in this life. I
Mhm.
think that is incredibly poetic and beautiful and just restorative. And a lot of people, um, they don't realize that because of the programming in modern day society that God has to be some sky daddy, that the ultimate creator, they're beyond polarity, like they contain both. Um, I think that's really, really beautiful. Sorry, I was just like excited about your story there. I just kind of got lost thinking about it. And like I'm just imagining you sitting there just thinking about all this stuff. And like have you ever seen that meme that has like that guy that has like the whiteboard behind him and he looks like he's going crazy? That's me when I'm learning. That's me all the time. Okay, so I think that's really, really cool. And I think it's so important that people understand that like what you're doing is it's actually healing the root cause. And sometimes that means, for instance, we need to go straight into affirmations and reprogramming the mind because the mind has just accidentally picked up this misbelief or whatever, because even though this pain is real, it's not the bullet lodged in your organ somewhere. And other
Mhm.
people, it's like, okay, we need to maybe you need a little herbal supplement to help your system make up for whatever it's missing while we do this inner work. And maybe we need to do some energy work as well and some magic to course correct in the process. It doesn't mean that anyone's pain is less important. It just means that there's different approaches because different people are wounded on different layers. So before we move on, because I don't want to forget, um, the mystical intervention side of that story, what happened
Mhm.
there? Because our listeners are going to be like, why didn't you ask? Like,
So I was 14,
Okay.
and my mom had gone to work, and
Mhm.
I knew that my brother was going to go spend the weekend with my godbrothers, right? And so I had the house all to myself. Um, I went in the cabinet, went
Mhm.
outside, found some things wild in nature, and those things were beginning to work. Now, I have to backtrack for a second because remember, I grew up in a haunted house.
Yeah.
And when in Chicago, my family's home was haunted. And when we first moved to North Carolina, we stayed with my brother's dad's family for a little bit. Her house was not active. That left me and my mom quite unsettled because it's like, this is weird. And so when she bought her house down here in North Carolina, I remember when we looked at it, she was like, "Did you feel something in there?" I said, "Yeah." Like she bought the house solely because she felt the presence there, right? My mom doesn't necessarily have gifts. She does, she suppressed them.
Mm.
And the trauma that she went through. So, and two, my mom is a great person. Our relationship has very much healed. My mom walked around with undiagnosed PTSD for 17 years because when she came back
Mm.
from Desert Storm, she was a different person, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so this is where all of this took place after she came back and she was self-medicating. Okay. So, there was a man that lived in the house, a spirit. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, I lived at the time in Unionville, which is in Union County, North Carolina, and it it actually was a part that the Trail of Tears came through.
Oh, wow.
So the area, not only the homes, but the area was very active. Like we'd hear drums in the middle of the night and things like that. And so there was this one spirit that lived in our home, and he was an elder man. He was very clearly indigenous, although his dress was modern for at the time, right?
Mhm.
And he never spoke. He never spoke. It would just be those times when I would be laying in my bed after one of me and my mom's episodes. He would kind of just stand there and his presence would comfort me, or he would sit on my bed. And, again, he never would speak. But this particular time I was trying to get to my bed, okay,
Mhm.
because the concoction was working. I was trying to get to my bed to just lay down so that I could be
Yeah.
found peacefully. I couldn't make it to the bed, so I just kind of like had it to where is I slumped down and I was leaned up against the bed, and I just kind of looked out of the side of my eye and I saw him come in my room. He knelt down near me and he put his hand in my stomach and he said, "Not yet." He said, "This is not for you, not yet." And I just felt like I guess the best way I could describe it, I've never had to have a defibrillator used on me, but I would imagine the feeling that went through my body was like if somebody had used a defibrillator on me from the inside.
Mm.
Next thing I know, I turn into Linda Blair in the sense that my stomach empties all of its contents.
Wow.
My stomach empties all of its contents. But he said, "Not yet." He said, Not like this." And he said, "You have a way to go, but you're going to be able to get through it." And, when I was younger, I was told a long time ago, probably around 7, that I was a wounded healer. I didn't necessarily know what that meant. And it didn't make any sense because my early childhood, up until my mom went to Desert Storm and came back, was perfect, right?
Yeah.
But then when she came back, the wound started wounding. Like I had
Mm.
to get wounded. And so that was the only time that he ever spoke to me. Um, and yeah, so that was that story.
Wow.
And it definitely is beyond belief. I still sometimes can't believe that it happened to me, but it
Yeah.
it did. So
Yeah.
miracles, miracles don't always look like walking on water and giving sight back to the blind. Sometimes miracles look
Absolutely.
like, a spirit getting your stomach spiritually pumped instantly.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Wow. What what a story. Oh my goodness. And also like okay, so you know what's funny is that I just this is my brain what stood out to me is you saying it's hard for me to believe because like for those of us who do this kind of work, we see miracle signs and wonders all the time. Half the time it still feels like we're making it up.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, that's how you know people are in this like for the right reasons. It's like they're not walking around here because like cocky and whatnot. Like they're telling you, no, I feel crazy sometimes.
And
That
I
is
have
so
never
that's
told that story publicly.
oh wow. Well,
I've
thank you so
never
much for
told that
sharing
story
that.
publicly. Yeah, never. Because it's one of those stories where you feel like if you tell somebody, they be like, girl, I'm getting ready to go make a completely unrelated phone call right now. And then the white coats show up. Like it's just one of those things. Like and a lot of the things that we see is like, who they are going to lock me away if I say these things.
No,
And
I
that's most of our
know.
path and most of our journeys.
Yeah. It's so funny. It really is. Like it's so interesting. Like first of all, I do not want to move on too quickly. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that you hadn't shared it publicly. I know you had mentioned the attempts before, but like I never caught the story, and I thought maybe I just missed it because you're always pumping out content. But um, I, I think thank you for sharing that, and I know that there's a reason for everything, and I believe that somebody's going to hear that and be like, oh my gosh, like, and it's going to speak to them. I also know that people are hearing us talk about like feeling crazy and like really, and some of them are also educated and they're like, wait, like I know what mental illness looks like. There's like this part of us that like it walks a fine line where it's like sometimes like it is a little delulu, like to have
Mhm.
faith and believe and do things. But it's like, I don't know, like for me,
Is something wrong?
yeah, yeah. And I think, when I teach my mediumship students, I'm like, just, this is just a basic example. I'm like, you guys, the difference between schizophrenia and clairaudience is the ability to end the communication, to turn it off, to stop. Um, but like dealing with in a healer's position when you are doing healing work, we're not allowed to prescribe or diagnose. And so it's like and I usually can fix the problem, but it's also there's people like for instance that loves lost and things where they actually had mental illness on top of spiritual gifts and it's like it's so convoluted because it's like I can't touch that or I'm going to get in trouble or it's
Mhm.
going to harm you more and it's like this fine line to walk. And so when you become aware of how similar certain things look, it really does kind of make you be like, oh, like maybe I should watch some of the things I say. um
Mhm.
because yeah, them white coats, but you know if it makes you
And
feel
we
any
have
better,
to
they're not
too
showing
be
up.
responsible because I'm also not that reader. I'm be like, with therapy, I will suggest, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? This is something, so we are going to tackle this energetically and spiritually, but I also challenge you to find a therapist that works well with you because I'm all about integration.
Yeah.
Because there
Yeah.
are a lot of irresponsible practitioners that will help you nosedive off of the cliff that is full on spiritual psychosis.
Yeah. Yes. And like just push you deeper in there. And like, no, you can't do that to people.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so gathering my thoughts back here because I was just like present in the conversation. Um, so thank you for sharing that with us again. I do get that too, where it's like, wow, like I can't share some of this stuff because it sounds kind of crazy, but also at the same time, it's like I find when we risk looking crazy or like a fool sometimes when we get certain details and readings, like it oftentimes is the most important thing that needs to be heard. So like I trust and believe like someone's gonna hear that and it's gonna speak to them in ways we don't even comprehend. We oh my goodness, it's already been like 50 minutes. Jeez. Okay, so I have a couple more questions and then
Hmm.
anything else you want to share, feel free to bring it up. But um First of all,
And I got my whole
what
morning blocked off for this, so we're good.
oh, praise God. Thank God. I was like, my goodness, I hope she doesn't have reading starting in like 10 minutes.
Mm-mm.
So Mike, I'm curious, like, for our listeners who are like on this journey and maybe they don't have any experience, maybe they have a little experience, it doesn't really matter, seasoned, beginner, it doesn't matter. Like, what would be your message to them or like your advice to them to get started in their personal healing? Not seeking power, not seeking to become a healing service to everyone else. What would be your personal, like, hey, this is what I suggest you kind of dive into. This is what I suggest you look into. And again, anything you want to throw in there, feel free to. But one of the things I was going to say is I find that sometimes, okay, so when I'm doing like the magic and healing course, like I teach people to prove to themselves that this stuff is real. That way they can get over that and be like, okay, now how do I help myself? It's like test it and then see. Um, do you have any similar like vibes? You're like, okay, let's prove to you that this stuff works, and then that way you can kind of dive in. And then also, what would be your advice to anyone diving in? So,
So for those diving in, one thing you need to do is kind of build your intuition in a sense so that you can sharpen your discernment, right?
yes.
So my first stop that I tell people to stop at is learn how to meditate properly. I actually teach a meditation course because when you're able to not even quiet the noise, but at least turn down the 808s in the background so that you can
Mm-hmm.
hear, this gets you your discernment because there's so much information out there, and that will help you to know what applies and what you need to let fly. And
Gotcha.
for healing, there's this book called No Mud, No Lotus. It's written by a monk. Um,
Ooh,
it's called No Mud, No Lotus. This actually helps you to understand the mud so that you can become a lotus. It's how to not so much integrate trauma, but how to understand that, and know what to do with that and why that is part of the journey. But one thing that I really love about it is that, unlike the way a lot of it is taught in the church, long suffering, you're supposed to suffer your entire life and then
yeah, that's all
have
nonsense.
everything when you die. Yes. So it helps you to deal with your trauma and understand that it was necessary without pushing the you need to suffer for your entire life. So that is an amazing book. But meditation, and then also too, I would say to find a good teacher. You can manifest, try the one way I tell people to prove it to yourself that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
You know how they say, tell the universe to send you a gift within the next 24 hours and make it unmistakable that it's a gift from the universe,
Yeah.
right? I tell people you can manifest a teacher in that same way. Show me the person who is going to guide me. And it might, I'm not even saying that because I necessarily want it to be me, because not every reader or every mentor is from everybody, but really sit and set the intention, right, on having the universe send you the teacher that is right for you, whether you sign up and invest in the mentorship with them. Next thing you know, don't pay attention to the fact if you start suddenly seeing this person taking over your FYP.
Mm-hmm.
That's a message too. Like
That's
that,
a
sometimes
message
that's the
too.
way it gets answered. Mm-hmm.
I know, and sometimes it looks so mundane that we miss the message. Like, and you know what's actually interesting? So over the summer, I lost my grandmother after losing my
Sorry.
partner. Well, my partner didn't die, but like mental illness was the point. Um, I thank you. And I was just like, you know what? I need an unmistakable sign. I don't want no sweet nothings in my head. Like, I need an obvious sign from someone else or something else. And it's so interesting that the reason I'm saying this is because it's sometimes we can miss that mundane thing, such as like them taking over the FYP or showing up in an easy way. I asked my grandmother because I was thinking, I was like, you know, I need to give her a symbol that she can use. Or, and I actually, what I was doing is I was talking with her, because as a medium, it's like, death is always weird. You're like, they're not really gone. But then you have to still mourn and grieve. And so there's like moments. Anyway, so I remember just like talking and being like, what symbol are we gonna do? Like that way when you're trying to get my attention. And all of a sudden I was like, oh well duh, like she was a school teacher, like a red apple with like a green worm, or maybe even a school pencil. Well, so I was like, okay, send me that to confirm that's what you want. Well, 2 hours later, a friend calls me and is like, why has nobody told me about cotton candy grapes? And I was like, I don't know, girl. Maybe because they cost $20 when you check out. Uh, and she was like, yeah. And it just reminded me of being at the fair with my mom growing up. And I used to ride this rotten apple roller coaster. And I was like, wait a minute, what? I was like, what?
Mhm.
And I didn't say anything at the moment because we were talking about something else. Mind you, this is a spiritual person. Like, totally would have been game for me to interrupt. I was just like, ain't no way. Um, knowing damn well there's a way. Um, so about an hour later, I sent her a voice and I was like, hey, question. You mentioned a roller coaster earlier. Was there a red apple or a cartoony or green worm involved at all? And she goes, that's exactly what it was. And she sent me a photo, and it was literally a green worm with apples and stuff like that. And I was like, that is unmistakable and beyond probability. Like,
Mhm.
that is wild. But it would have seemed so mundane because of how it was mentioned. Had I not told Spirit that this would mean something to me, I wouldn't have clocked it. And so, what I want our hearers, our listeners to take away is when you are asking for a sign and then something comes across, the synchronicities are things that don't seem to have any connection aside from that they make sense to you.
Mhm.
And they can be very mundane, and people will often be, oh, well, that's just confirmation bias. Well, yeah, that's just a term for synchronicity. And
Mhm.
also, like, you're assigning meaning to it. And after it happening so many times, like, mathematically and statistically, it's beyond explainable as coincidence. Like, that's not even a realm of possibility. So, my point is that,
Packaging.
yes, the
Packaging will get you.
packaging, yes.
So you know what? In all of my learning, do you realize that it didn't register with me that I was psychic until I was 16? All of these things. Literally, I thought it was good common sense, right? Because I was
Mm,
raised by my elders. When my elders spoke, I listened, right?
mm,
And people would tell me I had an old soul all the time. I really thought that it was the fact that I listened to my elders, I had good common sense, right? Raised right. And because I played video games, I was good at pattern recognition, and the fact that I again grew up in a haunted house, right? And so me and my friend, we were watching Teen Witch at her house, and that the
ooh,
little lady, I love her, right? Love her down. I can't remember her name. The
ah,
the lady that she was the spiritualist when Carol Ann got stuck in the TV on Poltergeist. She played in
mhm.
Teen Witch. She was the witch that the girl went to go see. I was like, I want to be just like that mystical magical lady, using mystical magical gifts to, you know, and she leaned up at me looking like I just said the dumbest thing on earth. She said, girl, you are. I said, what? And she was like, girl, people who are old enough to be your parents and grandparents come to you for advice. And she's like,
Mhm.
you can repeat conversations word for word that haven't happened yet or that you weren't there for. And you'll tell people that something is going to happen and then it happens. You idiot. What do you think that is? Like I was literally hung up on the packaging because again, growing up in a haunted house, paranormal and supernatural things were my norm. And so I
Yeah.
couldn't even see it as something as extraordinary. I guess too, in the movies, like a golden stream of light with glitter and it would come through the
Yeah.
window when somebody was being mystical and magical, or there would be some invisible choir or an orchestra. I thought that was what it was supposed to look like. So I did, and all the learning that I was doing, I didn't see these things as psychic abilities or something mystical and magical, because they were so normal that it didn't register with me that it was not normal, and in fact was
Yeah.
something extraordinary. So that is that. Don't get hung up on packaging, because mysterious movement a lot of times shows up in the most mundane of ways, literally 98% of the time.
Yes. Yes, 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 it does.
Mhm.
And it's like, again, it's like when you're familiar with something, you can't recognize it. And that's, yeah, absolutely. And that's, and it's funny because it was the same way. Like I had advice. I knew things I had no business knowing. Like I shouldn't have been able to have wisdom as a fifth grader for certain things. And like it's funny because people overlook that because it's not that golden stream of light coming through the window. It's not, the vision where you zone out for a minute. Um, or because they're not predicting things word for word and they just have a stream of wisdom. Sometimes they're like, oh well, no, maybe I'm just, good at talking. So yeah, guys, don't mistake that. I was gonna say yesterday I was having a conversation with somebody earlier, mentioned no mud, no lotus, and how like you understand why certain things happen, or at least in order to get to the good. And like we were talking about how in the church they like there is an incorrect thought that's not relevant to original language of scripture, that you have to suffer, or God's going to use sickness or pain or things to teach you how to become X, Y, and Z. And that's just a complete like BS, like lie. Like that's not at all how that works. But we were literally talking about this yesterday, and we were talking about how like stuff still happens, people still have free will, there is still distortion in this world somewhere, somehow. And we have to trust that those things will be used to work together for our good. And oftentimes, it's not had to go through this illness to understand, this appreciation for life, or, I had to have my life blown up in order to become of healing service to others. That's not true either. And we don't want to over identify with the suffering part of our story, but there is
Mhm.
comfort in knowing that things do work together for our good. They do work together. Like the mud is necessary for the lotus. And I think that's just interesting that that theme keeps coming up, because I did an episode. Um, we host the Christian Witch podcast as well, and so I did an episode with a friend yesterday, and it was talking about embracing the fall and trusting the process, because this whole year has been stressful and just heartache after heartache for so many people. Specifically, this summer has been like somebody's been on like a homicidal spree trying to take us all out. But um, I just remember I was like, but also there were so many blessings happening at the same time. Like it was so weird. And I was talking about, I was like, it feels like I was climbing up a mountain and like fell off. And that's where the idea of like embracing the fall. So we started talking about that. But it was like I got caught before I hit the ground. And it was like I started being pulled back up. And it was like, even though things were exploding around me and the world was ending, metaphorically speaking, blessings were happening. I was still ascending, I was still rising. And so it's like we can trust that things will work together for our good. We can also trust that in the process of it not working out, like there is still goodness to be found.
Mhm. Yeah,
And I feel
you're
like,
right. This year has been a
yeah, it's
Mhm.
been intense. It's been intense. So I appreciate that you mentioned getting in touch with your spiritual senses first, being able to recognize what means something, what needs to be let go. I often tell people, I'm like, a lot of our thoughts are not our own, and we're picking up things from around us. So, like, becoming aware of oneself is really important. Um,
Mhm.
if there is like a message or a like not a mission statement, I guess, but like for instance, like one of the things I want people to know is like whether you book with me or not, like my mission is to show you that like you're enough, you're lovable, everything you want is available to you, and like your life has value. Do you have a similar like message for anyone that may be going through something? You're like, you know what, I really identify with her story, and I like I also had paranormal experiences, or maybe, I, also had an abusive parent or whatnot. Like, is there anything out there? Like, is there any heart message, like healing message you want to give like our listeners? I mean, I know there's probably like a book you can write because you've already written like, almost three now, but
Mhm.
is there anything like a little nugget of something that's on your heart right now?
Everything that you're searching for is inside of you.
Mm,
There is nothing outside of yourself that you're looking for. I always tell people, spoiler alert, everything you are at the starting line, and you are what's at the finish line. I always want people to get in touch with themselves first, because you'll realize that the power is in there, right? It's not something that needs to be given to you. Your power, your greatness, and your sovereignty are inherent. You just have to learn how to step into it. And once you realize the power of that is already in you, you'll be less likely to hand it over to someone or something outside of yourself.
mhm.
Everything that you need is in you. It's just the wisdom that you're looking for from outside sources, right? It's
Yeah.
just the wisdom and the learning, but the power is already there. Because also, like, I don't watch a lot of TV, but them cult documentaries, because I that's really, for real, that's my mission. Because I tell people, if you find, because even if it's not me, if you find somebody that is asking you to hand your power over to them or to think for you, if a person puts you in a position, or they're trying to put you in a position where you're completely dependent on them, run.
Yes.
Right? I'm at the big age, and although Jonestown happened before I was born, I grew up hearing the whispers of it, right? I
Mm,
watched Heaven's Gate, Waco. I watched those incidences play out on live TV, and it can happen so smooth. And the one common theme amongst these people, and I send this out not only as a gem of encouragement, but also as a warning,
yeah.
you know, because I love the fact that spirituality is so common now and less taboo. So this way people can explore what works for them. But also, too, there is another side of that coin, because for every one of me and you, there's a bunch of other people that are
Yeah.
willing to drive you off of a cliff. And
Yes.
so that, because everything, your power is in you, you're only looking for wisdom in other
Yeah.
places, not your power. It's all you. You just need to find the wisdom to learn how to use it properly, and to find which way works best for you to use it. It ain't in nobody else. There is no middleman. There is no
Yes.
middleman. And my ultimate goal is to make it to where you don't need me. You should. I want the
Yeah.
my mission is to make myself not useless to people, but I don't want anybody dependent on me. You shouldn't have to. If you find a teacher and they send you anywhere else outside of yourself, run. Go outside of their presence and run.
Yes.
Because that's not it. That's not it. No, if I don't point you back to yourself, I have failed you,
Yes.
and I have failed the
Absolutely.
divine. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I like that last little bit too. I heard it. Don't you worry. And I feel the divine. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. It is. It's funny because as you say that, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's another layer of, you know, it's like, yeah, obviously, like I agree, and I remember learning about the cults and like seeing things to reruns and whatnot growing up. I'm always telling people, like, even people you trust, like when people learn from me, I'm like, don't trust me because you like me.
Mm-hmm.
Test everything I'm telling you. Do not trust me because you like me. And I'm really grateful that my mentors taught me that, but I also had mentors turn on me instantly out of
Yep.
nowhere. Like, they just, anyone can go dark. And it it kind of messes with your faith. It messes with your head, and but it's also kind of a theme in the spiritual journey to be disappointed by people you look up to realize that everyone is human. They're no more special than I. We have that power within us. We shouldn't be giving them that, putting them on that pedestal, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I love that so much, and that speaks to my heart too. That's why um, Healer's House is for the healers and the healing, because it's like, we'll help you in your healing journey, but we're going to train and equip you and empower you in that process. You are not
Hmm.
going to stay powerless and broken. And I love that that's something you do. Like, it's so, like, that's what I'm fanboying over, is that the healing work that you're doing. I love it. I love it
Thank
so
you.
much. So talking
I
about the
pay
healing work,
attention to that part in the Bible where even Jesus said, "You shall do greater things than me. I am the way and the truth and the light,"
Mhm.
not through worshiping him, but by taking his example.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, in Aramaic, it means I am way, I am truth, I am like, meaning like the things that he taught us how to live in alignment and
Yeah.
access those realities and the resources of the kingdom.
Mhm.
Even when he said, go preach the gospel, he said, preach the gospel of the kingdom. This was before he was crucified. The gospel is not about the crucifixion. That's a wonderful part of the story. It's beautiful. I'm not taking away from that. What I'm saying is, when he came onto the scene, he said, the kingdom is at hand, repent, which means to shift the way that your mind views a situation, and
Mhm.
miracle signs and wonders happened. So
Yep.
he basically said, hey, there, like, everything you want is available to you. The resources are here. And all of a sudden people started getting healed. All of a sudden things happened. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I love that you just said that, because that's another thing. When people ask me what I do, I tell them, like, I give people freedom and healing. And I do that through mediumship, energy work, uh, hypnotherapy, whatever it may be. But the reason being is because, like, my model is Jesus. That's what he did. Like, the word where we get saved from, like, it gets misconstrued, but it's sozo in Greek, and it means to rescue, heal, and deliver. And Jesus tells us what from. In the Sermon on the Mount, he uses the word evil, which is the word paneros, which means pain, sickness, poverty, and torment. And so like, it's in a roundabout way, my life has kind of been, is modeled after Jesus. Like, I am helping
Mhm.
people get healing and freedom from those things and empowering them to do the work themselves. I'm not saying you have to depend on me to do it. And I think
And
that's
that's
so
about resting in
beautiful.
your own Christ consciousness.
Yes. Yeah. It like awakens that divine spark within us all. Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. And by all means, don't feel like you have to go in depth, but if someone were to book with you, like, a service, let's say they're on their healing journey and they just like, I really want to work with the seeing healer, I really want to work with Terry, what would that process look like? And again, don't give away any like surprises, but like, is there like a consultation? Is there like like, what happens?
So, so you could on my website or my link tree, I have the oracle readings. Those would
Mhm.
be either the oracle readings or a coaching session. The only difference is a deck of cards. I'm a seer. I don't have an off switch. So even in those coaching sessions, we're going to talk it out, because tarot cards are not necessarily for everyone. Right. So in either of those, what I do, even my tarot readings, right? My style of reading is not as predictive as other readers, right? I attract people that are mainly lost or they're going through the things. And what I do is we go through, whether in a oracle reading or a coaching, I'll get the core of it, because your people come in and they start telling me
Mhm.
about you a couple of minutes before the session. So a lot of times before I see the person's face, they people done already started people and then telling on them, right? And informing me of what it is that they need. And then we go from there. It is a safe space, right? It is a safe space. Um, and it's really nothing to be afraid of. It's a conversation, just one of those
Mhm.
conversations. It involves illustrated cards. That's it. It's nothing to be afraid of. But those, and then we formulate a plan and see where to go from there, and just different follow-ups.
Gotcha. I love that. I think
Mhm.
that's such a great way to dive into that. And so if people wanted to do that, they what would be that link? Because what
Mhm.
we can do also is I will put it on in the podcast description, but some people don't
Mhm.
see it. They're driving, they
Yeah,
forget. So it will be
right.
Linktree slash
No, or you could just go to my website directly,
okay.
mothersmedicinehealsall.com.
Perfect. Mothersmedicinehealsall.com.
Yep,
That
that's it.
perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So tell us about these books. Because I know there are gonna be people being like, why didn't you ask about the books? Like
So Divine Femme Noir, working with the goddesses for the reclamation of your divinity. It is I had to take a moment as a healer. Yes, my arms are open to all, but I had to take a step and address the community of Black women specifically because
Mm,
with our inherent programming, right? And the fact that as Black women, we come here, like most people, we come here with a minimum of 14 generations of ancestral trauma. And so, what I find in my coachings and mentorship and things like that, Black women struggle the most with feeling like you don't have the right to be
mm,
divine. And they struggle the most with overcoming the ideology that God is something that is outside of yourself. Black women probably struggle the most with that.
mhm,
And so I, through mythology, right, all of my different studies over the years, right, I took various goddesses from different pantheons and correlated, and I was able to string their wisdom to the story of Black women and how Black women can learn from. Is it about worshiping the goddesses? No, it is about learning from them, because also
mm,
too, there are Black women who are not going to gravitate to the ATRs, right? There are some that, for whatever reason, an ATR is one of the closed practices, that is the ATR hoodoo might, but also too, even then, for those that are into the ATRs and that resonates with them and that is their path, I'm one of those people where no matter your spiritual discipline or what have you, it's great to get knowledge from
yes,
diverse sources, because at the beginning and end of the day, everybody is saying the same thing or very
yeah,
similar things. It's expressing them in certain ways. And so hopefully my greatest hope for this work is to help Black women deprogram that, worthiness, because I'm going to be honest, like, as a Black woman, my experience in this world as a Black woman, our innocence is really stripped away from us at the age of 4. And that
mhm,
is a very important time, especially when you look at what is actually happening in the brain during those
yep,
developmental years. We're all, before we enter kindergarten, you got to work twice as hard, be twice as smart, and be twice as good at everything else just to be half as good as your other counterparts. That's a
mhm,
worthiness shadow right there into a 4-year-old. And as bad as it sounds to take your kids' innocence like that and teach them that they're not good enough, when we go out into society, it's proven true. So it's a little
mhm,
difficult. And so I think where um this, as Black women, are very specifically and deliberately marginalized group, because in all my esoteric studies, you also got to look at history too.
yeah,
Right? Even books When God Was a Woman by Merlin Stone, and
yeah,
then the
mhm,
Sibyls, the original prophetesses of Mami Wata by Mama Zope. This one, between these two, the Sibyls connects the rest of the dots that When God Was a Woman left kind of open. And so through history, harsh truths, right? And
mhm,
telling the whole tale, my greatest hope is that really anybody. Even is it only for Black women to buy? No, because as a white male or a white woman, it can give you a glimpse into what somebody else is going through and the
Yeah.
struggles of somebody else. And so my biggest goal with that was to finally help Black women push through, because a lot of times they forget how magical, you know, they inherently are. And so
Yeah.
it was a, I call it it's a book, but I wanted it to act as a blockbuster.
It is. It's a blockbuster and it's a course, and it is absolutely speaking life into people and digging out that gold in them. As you're talking, like I'm just sitting here thinking, you know what, I love that you just at the end there was like, it doesn't matter if you're a Black woman or not, a white male, a white female, a Hispanic woman, like everyone can learn wisdom from this. It's so true. And this may seem a little bit like an off example. Not really. Like, long story short, like I'm a white male, for those of you who don't know. I may be a unicorn, like, but I'm definitely, like still a white male. And I am lucky enough to like have learned from a lot of really great people and connected with people of all different cultures. And I was reminded of a hoodoo priestess who was, practicing from the age of 4, ironically, same age you just mentioned, in her mama's kitchen, like learning and growing her whole life. And she was part of one of my local circles one time for just development and energy work. And she was talking to me about some of the wisdom and the shadow work and the healing and stuff that they do. And like, it really was feeding my soul. And she was really adamant. She was like, depending on what part of the country you're in, people are going to tell you it's closed, it's not closed, whatever. She goes, but either way, I don't want you to feel like you can't learn from me. So just consider yourself invited
Mhm.
and adopted in. And she like taught me a little bit about those things. And so, like you said, learning wisdom from other cultures, because we are talking about the same thing at the root cause. But
Mhm.
it's this is when sometimes that packaging matters, because Black women are going to receive this from you so powerfully, versus if I like could you imagine if I got out there and was like, oh, I learned from a mentor and like wrote a book on goddesses and like connected the dots like you just did. No one's going to read that book and have the profound healing experience that they are when they read your version of it. And but I don't want that to stop people who aren't Black women from reading it,
Right.
because I know they're gonna pull so much wisdom from it. So by all means, you
Mhm.
guys check out that book.
Because also too, it garners empathy and compassion, right?
Yes.
So like there's a man on TikTok, Prince of Pads. He developed a line of menstrual care products for women. This
Mm.
is a man, right? This is not his problem. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And women give him flack for it all the time. I'm like, that's a man. He didn't have to learn about our bodies and develop sanitary napkins that kind of have medicine in them, and to actually
Yeah.
make that not so brutal, so packaging, it does matter, in a sense. And there's fluidity in that, right? And again,
Mhm.
even with like, I'm not initiated into the ATRs. I learn about it respectfully because it's closed. I'm
Yeah.
not going to work with those things. But again, I love information. And so there is information in here. And, one thing about not only the journey, the spiritual journey, but just the journey of learning is it can help you put yourself into a different set of shoes that are not your own. Because if you are going to do healing work, you need to learn how to take care of certain people. Certain people will have different needs, just like a male OB, right? Or
Mhm.
a female you have to learn as much as you can about diverse things, because you're going to have diverse quote unquote patients.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. My goodness. There's so many rabbit trails I wanna go on. I'm not gonna do it. Okay. The tree of life, the tree of death. Give us your
Mhm.
spiel on that.
So that a lot of people, they see the tree of life, right? But they don't know exactly what it is. It's a cute tapestry, it's a cute pendant charm, but it's a
Mhm.
map. It's a
Yeah.
map. And all of those spheres are different. The spheres and pathways are points on a map. And not only is it correlated to your spiritual journey, but your mundane journey as well. And
Mm,
so the different spheres are like the personality of the divine. But remember, the divine is not something that is outside of yourself. So this is
mm-hmm.
also a reflection of you. It's basically how to read the map and read the mirror in a sense. And a lot of people, they know about the tree of life, but we can't forget duality. Since there is a tree of life, there has to be a tree of death. And so the spheres on the tree of life, those correlate to an angelic order, right? To walk
Mm-hmm.
in light. So the tree of death is there can't be light without shadow, and there can't be shadow without light. And so it teaches how to read these maps and what you're dealing with on any certain point of it and how it
Mm-hmm.
relates to yourself. So, like for instance, the emanation of Hod,
Mm-hmm.
submission, right? Sometimes you want to push through, push through, push through. Hod is the emanation of letting go and letting God, whatever that is for you, right? On the shadow side of that, right? It's the ego that makes you like, nope, I can do all of this and that and that and that.
Mm-hmm.
You get the victory through surrender to something else that is bigger than yourself, right? Hod
Yeah.
teaches you that it is a very big difference between can and should. Can this relate in our magical journey? Yes, right? Okay, I'm at a point where I done pulled out all the stops, nothing is working. Ancestors, I'm gonna need you to ancestor, right? This is where, it is the emanation of the practitioner too, because this is where it's like, you know what, this is a little bit above my pay grade, but I got friends in other places. Let me go
Yep.
into ritual, right? But also too, on the mundane side, right? I'm dealing with this project, I'm fighting through, I just can't think of the other idea, you know but I know somebody who does. Let me call up a friend of mine who's
Mm-hmm.
good at video editing, right? I don't know
Yeah.
how to do this. And so we experience these things and these energies every day, every single day. And so that one is a good one. And that one is instant download.
Instant
That
download.
one is
Okay,
an instant
cool.
download.
The mothersmedicinehealsall.com for all of those.
Yep. You can
Perfect.
go to my services page. The Tree of Life and the Tree of Death are in the portal. That's the shop, and they're on the
Mm-hmm.
bestsellers tab.
Oh, amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
so the one of the questions I like to when I have people on the podcast, I like to always end with is if and this is a little bit more introspective, so feel free to answer whatever comes to mind, but um if somebody were to get to know you, be it a healer, being a friend, being whatever it may be, what's something about you you would want them to know, but it may not be something they would even think to ask, or it may not be something that like really would just come up naturally. Like, what is it that you would want someone to know if they're going to work with you, if they're going to follow you, whatever it may be,
I'm gonna do
that they
my
may not
best
think
to
that?
bring out the best in you.
Yes, I love it.
hmm
I love that.
Yep. Yeah. I'm gonna teach you how to love yourself. Because they say when you attract a certain sign into your life, it's because they're there to show you. They're there to teach you something. Big Leo energy. Leo rising Leo. If I don't show you anything else, I will show you how to love yourself.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool. And I think it's funny because as you were talking, I heard like when you're like, I'm gonna, be a mirror for you, I'm gonna bring out the best in you. And it was because you're embodying all of these practices we've just talked about for the last however long it's been now. Like you're really embodying all of those things. And it was funny because we hadn't even got to astrology, but like there it was wrapped up as well. That's that big Leo energy. You're gonna teach people how to love themselves, and how you're doing it is through that variety of skill sets and tools that you've picked up. It has been like I'm sure when I go back and listen to this, I'm like, I have all these questions I should ask. I I have so much love and respect. Thank you so much for spending time with me this morning and doing the
You are
podcast.
welcome.
And
I'll be happy to come back. If you think of 20 more questions, I'd be happy to come back because literally, I love it. I could do this all day.
okay, cool. Well, then we're gonna do it because I'm gonna go back and be like, you know what, I should have asked X, Y, and Z. So we'll do a part two soon. But
Okay.
I want to remind everyone, if you are just starting your healing journey, if you are wait, don't you have like a course or a challenge or something as well going on, or is that already like closed?
It's already started. We're on day
Gotcha.
9,
Okay.
but I need to talk to my partner on that, Angela. I think we're going to want to do another one, especially
Okay.
with the change. So just stay tuned for that because I think another round is due. I think another
Gotcha.
round is going
Okay.
to be due after this one. Probably, I want to do it because I don't pick dates arbitrarily. I want
Gotcha.
to kind of do this one maybe leading up to the solstice or leading us into from Scorpio season because that is an intense part of the year.
Hmm.
So I want to maybe do one going from transitioning from Scorpio into Sagittarius season. So there's going to be another one coming up soon, the 21-day reset. Yes.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Well, I want to remind all of you guys, no matter where you're at in your healing journey, to really just embrace where you're at. And in that process, should you find yourself needing assistance, help, guidance, or inspiration, do not sleep on Terry, the Seeing Healer. Go to mothersmedicinehealsall.com. Check out those books. Check out the TikToks. If you go and watch the TikToks alone, your spirit will be lifted. You will be taught how to love yourself. I promise you. And I'm one of those people. I don't spend a lot of time watching TV. Like I really have to want to do it. But when I find myself on TikTok, for me to follow and like actually know someone's content, like to not be nerdy and healing and doing all this other stuff. Like I have to really vibe with it, you guys. So if you've liked anything we've done here at Healers Health so far, take my word for it. You're going to enjoy that. And all of that stuff is free. Not to mention the instant download you can get. Like you don't even have to wait for the 21-day reset. Like you can go already start this today. So go check it out, mothersmedicinehealsall.com, and go follow the Seeing Healer over on TikTok. And I'm sure she has links to everything else in that magical little tree on her profile. But we're going to go ahead and end the recording here. And thank you so much for being on this with me. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. And thank you all for listening. I know I'm not a short-winded woman, so thank you all for listening. Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's been my honor. All right, we're going to end this now. Bye,
Mhm.
guys.